Nice launch trajectory countdown. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence has started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch.
Vehicle is supersonic. Stage separation confirmed. Dragon separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing legs have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
Hello everyone, it's Saturday, March 30th, and you're looking at a live view of our Falcon 9 rocket awaiting its 5:52 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. My name is Zachary Lupin, and I'm an avionics reliability engineer here at SpaceX, and I'm joining you from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Welcome to our live launch coverage of the Eutelsat 36D mission. Today's launch marks SpaceX's 30th mission of 2024 and the 325th overall mission to date. Today is also the 7-year anniversary of the first reflight of an orbital-class rocket. 7 years ago today, a Falcon 9 launched SES-10, marking the first time in aerospace history that an orbital-class first stage was successfully reused. And on that 7-year anniversary, we currently have Falcon rockets vertical on all 3 of our launch pads at Cape Canaveral and Vandenberg. Eutelsat 36D is the first of 3 Falcon launches scheduled to lift off from both the Space Coast and the West Coast today. Later today, Starlink will launch from our neighboring pad at Space Launch Complex 40, followed by a third launch at Pad 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Eutelsat is a GEO-LEO operator with a fleet of 35 geostationary satellites and an overall constellation of more than 600 satellites in low Earth orbit. Eutelsat's 36D is a geostationary or GEO satellite that will be positioned 36,000 kilometers above Earth. Eutelsat 36D will be replacing the Eutelsat 36B satellite and will provide video services to customers in both Africa and Eurasia. We'll have more to share about today's mission later on in the webcast. So at T-minus 9 minutes and 25 seconds, let's learn a bit more about the Falcon 9 supporting today's mission. Falcon 9 is a 2-stage rocket that is both designed and manufactured by SpaceX for the reliable and safe transport of people and payloads into Earth orbit and beyond. It is the first and currently the only orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. The entire vehicle stands at 229 feet tall, or about the height of a 21-story building. The bottom 2/3 of the vehicle is the first stage, which is also referred to as the booster. The booster accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere and into space using 9 Merlin M1D engines, eventually separating from the rest of the rocket. Now that number 9 in the name refers to those 9 Merlin engines that power Falcon 9's first stage, and those engines are named after the Merlin, which is a species of falcon. The photo you're seeing now are these 9 Merlin engines, just like the engines responsible for getting today's payload to orbital velocity. Now, not only is the first stage the largest part of the rocket, but it's also the portion of the rocket that we attempt to land for future reuse. And today's booster is flying for its 12th time today, having previously flown 6 Starlink missions, 4 separate satellite missions, and CRS-26. Today, we're planning to land on the drone ship Just Read the Instructions, which is currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, to date, we've landed Falcon 9 272 times. Reusability is very important to us as it allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which in turn drives down the cost of access to space. Above the first stage is the second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine that ignites after the first stage separates. And that second stage is what will carry the Eutelsat 36D payload into orbit. And located above the second stage is the payload fairing, which is the large barrel structure with the pointed nose at the top of the rocket. At 17 feet in diameter, the carbon composite fairing protects satellites on its way to orbit, and they get jettisoned approximately 3 minutes into flight. The fairing halves supporting today's mission are both flight proven, with one half flying for its 9th time and the other half flying for its 5th. And after separation from the second stage, both fairing halves will return to Earth and will be recovered by our recovery team. The Eutelsat 36D satellite is currently safely stowed within those fairings. Now, based on the Airbus Eurostar Neo platform, the all-electric Eutelsat 36D payload will bring enhancements to areas of coverage as well as performance improvements. Now, as that T-clock approaches 0, let's learn a bit more about this payload and its journey from Europe. At T-minus 5 minutes and 10 seconds, Falcon 9 is currently tracking no issues and the payload is healthy. Falcon 9 has been loading propellant since the T-minus 35-minute mark and will finish loading at around T-minus 2 minutes. The range is ready to support and weather is currently green for our mission today. However, if for some reason we do not launch today, we do have a backup opportunity tomorrow at the same time. Coming up shortly, the Transporter Erector, or TE, will start to open its clamp arms and retract away from Falcon. Now that TE is the large truss structure that you see there next to the rocket. First, we'll see the clamp arms open around the second stage, and then the TE will begin to pull away from the rocket slightly.
Strong back lower has started.
At T-minus 0, ground hydraulic systems will pull the TE even further away from Falcon 9 as it lifts off. And there you can see those clamp arms retracting away from the second stage. Now, the first stage is connected to a launch mount at the base of the TE, but the structure is hinged and will tract away from the vehicle in preparation for launch. You may also hear the TE referred to as the strongback from the launch team. We use the TE to roll out the rocket to the pad and raise it to its vertical launch position. The TE also routes the vehicle's fluids, power, and telemetry umbilicals from the ground systems to the rocket and payload until Falcon 9 goes on internal power and clears the pad. And there you can see that strongback starting to recline away from the Falcon rocket. At this point in the countdown, both the first and second stages are nearly fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. Both first stage and second stage should finish loading propellant about a minute apart from each other, with the first stage finishing up in just a few moments from now and the second stage finishing up at around the T-minus 2 minute mark.
Stage 1 LOX close up.
And there you heard that confirmation of LOX loading completion on the first stage. Now, the white clouds you see around the vehicle is the chilled gas above the LOX tank, which we vent overboard to maintain pressure in the tank as needed. And when that water comes out into the Florida air, the humid moist air condenses into clouds and water. Coming up in about 20 seconds from now, we should hear confirmation of Stage 2 LOX loading completion. Now, at the T-minus 60 second mark, Falcon 9 will go into startup, and this means that the rocket's autonomous internal flight computers will have taken over the launch countdown. And then just inside of the T-minus 2 second mark, we'll light the Merlin 1D engines for liftoff. The Eutelsat 36D payload
Stage 2 lock complete.
and there's that confirmation of Stage 2 LOX loading on our Falcon vehicle. It is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of kerosene fuel and liquid oxygen. The Eutelsat 36D payload continues to be healthy, and the Falcon 9 team is currently tracking no issues on the rocket. Weather is still looking green, and the range is ready to support our T0 of 5:52 p.m. Eastern. And with that, we're proceeding into the last few minutes of terminal count.
Ground gas closeout.
In just about 15 seconds, we should hear a confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And there's that confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup. Lastly, we're waiting for our launch director to give the final go for today's launch.
Go for launch.
And there's the launch director's final go for launch. So we are set to launch the Eutelsat 36D payloads. Let's sit back and watch as Falcon takes the Eutelsat satellite to space.
30 seconds. Fifteen seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff of Falcon 9. Go Eutelsat, go Falcon. Vehicle is pitching downrange. Chamber pressure nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds and counting, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Launch Complex 39A, carrying the Eutelsat 36D payload to orbit. Now, during the rocket's ascent, we will be tilting the engines, the technical term for that being gimbling, and that'll turn the rocket horizontally in what we call a gravity turn. The vehicle will still be going up, but now will also be headed horizontally away from the launch pad. We've also throttled down the engines in preparation.
That is supersonic.
In preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, and this is when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of aerodynamic stress as it ascends through the Earth's atmosphere.
Max Q.
And there's that call out for max Q. Now, the rocket typically needs to go 17,500 miles per hour horizontally in order to avoid being pulled back down to Earth and get into orbit. So keep an eye on the Stage 1 telemetry, which is located at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Coming up in just under a minute from now, we're going to have 3 events in quick succession, starting with MECO, or main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then second engine start 1. MECO is where we shut down all 9 Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. This then gets followed by stage separation, which is when the first and second stages of Falcon separate from one another. And that'll be followed by second engine start 1, or SES1, where we light the MVAC engine on the second stage. So keep an eye out for all of these events, which are going to happen in rapid succession in about 25 seconds from now.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage ignition.
And there you heard and probably saw each of those 3 events, MECO, followed by stage separation, and then SES1. Coming up in about 30 seconds from now, we'll have fairing separation. The fairings are currently attached above the second stage, and they will be jettisoned away and will fall back to Earth.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And there's that confirmation of fairing separation from the second stage. As a reminder, we'll be attempting to retrieve these fairing halves today once they fall back to Earth with our recovery vessel, Bob. It's T plus 3 minutes and 55 seconds into today's mission. The next major event coming up will be at the T plus 65 minute mark, which you should be able to see on the left-hand side of your screen. And this will be the first stage entry burn. Now, to start that entry burn, we will be relighting 3 of the Merlin M1D engines, starting with the center engine, known as E9, followed shortly after by engines E1 and E5, which is similar to pumping the brakes to slow down the vehicle as it passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. We need to slow the booster down to reduce re-entry forces, which then helps us recover and reuse the first stage. Now, during that entry burn, Falcon 9 is decelerating by firing its Merlin engines, but we're also still moving really fast, and this causes the vehicle to fly through Merlin's exhaust gases, also known as the rocket's plume. And this deposits a layer of soot on the vehicle's surface. Now, that surface comes from the carbon-based fuel that Falcon 9 uses, and with each flight, the soot builds up a little more on the outside of the vehicle. And oftentimes prior to launch, you can actually see that soot on the first stage.
Nominal trajectory.
Good call out there of nominal trajectory. As a reminder, on the left-hand side of your screen is the Falcon 9 first stage, and on the right is the second stage, which is currently carrying the Eutelsat 36D payload to orbit. In just under a minute from now, we should hear confirmation of entry burn startup on the Falcon 9 first stage. And currently on your screen right now are some beautiful views of our second stage as it carries the Eutelsat 36D payload to orbit. As a reminder, today's booster is flying for its 12th time today, having previously flown 6 Starlink missions, 4 separate customer satellite missions, and CRS-26. Coming up in just about 10 seconds, we should hear...
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there's that confirmation of the Stage 1 entry burn on our Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And there's confirmation of completion of the Stage 1 entry burn for our Falcon 9 booster, which is on the left-hand side of your screen. Now, reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, which enables more investments in critical...
Nominal trajectory.
And there's that call-out of nominal trajectory. Reusability is key to lowering the cost of spaceflight, which enables more investments in critical scientific research. And the Falcon 9 first stage that is supporting today's mission performed this entry burn for its 12th time. The Merlins on the first stage are optimized for sea level, and these achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust each during ascent and descent. And at liftoff, Falcon 9's first stage has thrust greater than 5 747 airplanes at full power. Now on the second stage, the 1 MVAC engine with a much wider nozzle is optimized to 220,000...
Second stage in terminal guidance.
Good call out there. The MVAC engine...
Stage 1 transonic.
And there's a call out that Stage 1 is transonic. Coming up in just about 20 seconds, we should hear confirmation of landing burn for the Falcon 9 first stage.
Stage 2 FTS is saved. Stage 1 landing burn.
And then we heard 2 callouts for MVAC shutdown and landing burn start on our Falcon 9 first stage.
Nominal parking orbit. Landing leg deploy.
And there we had amazing views of our Falcon 9 first
Stage
stage
1 landing confirmed.
as it landed on our drone ship. Just read the instructions in the Atlantic Ocean. This landing marks SpaceX's 289th recovery of an orbital class rocket, including first stage landings for Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. We also heard confirmation of nominal orbital insertion. Now we still have one more burn of our second stage engine before we're ready to deploy Eutelsat 36D today. In a moment, we'll be going into coast, and we'll see you back here at the T+26-minute mark for the relight of our MVAC engine. So until then, sit back and enjoy the space jams.